Today we are unraveling 3 white belt mistakes that you newbies probably don't even realize that you're doing. If I had someone to give me these tips when I was new, it would have saved me a lot of headache. So if you're new to jiu-jitsu, you're in the right spot. Let's jump in. Before we jump into the video, you're probably noticing that the backdrop is a little bit different, and that's because it is. I usually film the talking portions of these at Grindstone West, which is in Olmsted Township, Ohio. And that's actually where I filmed the B-roll of this video. But this location is our new location in Chardon. I'll show you a little bit of it. So as you can see, we just got our floor mats in. We actually got our wall mats in the other day. We got our big grid light fixture coming in. That's on the way. And outside of the decorations, once this stuff is ready, we will be able to train in here. So we're really excited. We've been working on this thing for the past couple months and ready to make it available to the public. So if you're ever out in Ohio, whether it be the Olmsted location or the Chardon location, come check us out. So many of you have been beyond supportive of me building this channel over the past year, and I couldn't be more grateful. So you want to come get some training in, you want to come beat me up, come on through. I'd be happy to have you guys. All right, that's enough of that. Let's jump into the video. This first tip may seem obvious if you've been training for a little bit, but if you're brand new, it could be something that you're doing all the time without realizing it, and that's crossing your feet from the back. Now, full transparency, I don't typically have a problem with you crossing your feet if you know the risks and if you know the time and place for it. As you can see in this example, I've taken my training partner's back and I'm crossing my ankles in front of his thighs. Now, I mentioned his thighs for a reason, and we're going to get to that in a second, but as you can see in this example, all he has to do is lock his legs up over top of my top foot, and then applying hip thrusting pressure applies an ankle lock to that top foot. This is really painful for me, and if he does this hard enough, he can cause damage. Why do white belts do this? Well, because it feels like they have control of their training partner or their opponent. They don't know that there is a risk there, but really all you need is one leg to be laced past the inner thigh and your other leg, usually your top leg, on top of his hip. Now, this allows me to control my opponent while also putting downward pressure through the foot that's on his hip, so he doesn't ride too high up and out during his attempt to escape. Now, I mentioned his thighs earlier, locking your legs in front of his thighs. You can actually cross your feet when you're in back control if your feet are in front of his pelvis. They're too high up and they're out of range of that leg lock that we showed earlier. So if you are obtaining a higher back control position and it's natural for your feet to cross in front of his pelvis or his hips, then fine, that's okay. But if you're lower and your feet are crossed in front of his thighs, that's the danger zone. And I like to use those body parts as landmarks because they help me remember. So I'm hoping they'll help you remember where you're safe and where you're not safe. So if you haven't tried this one yet, give it a shot. If you've ever been submitted while you're on someone's back, it obviously doesn't feel great physically and for the ego, right? But you're going to go through ego death in jiu-jitsu multiple times. So cross your feet in the right place or just put them in the right place and you'll be fine. This next one is the rear naked choke. Now, if you watch high-level competitors do the rear naked choke, you'll watch them get their choking hand in, and then they almost, in a very smooth way, weave their other hand back behind the head, and they're able to lock up the choke that way. Now, there is a way to do this correctly, and there's a way to do this very incorrectly. Now, those of you that have tendonitis, inflammation, bone spurs in your elbows, this one will be a little bit harder to do. And if you struggle doing this the right way, I'm gonna have a little trick for you at the end. Now, as we check out this example, this is usually how white belts start off with the rear naked choke. You'll see that they get that arm across the neck, and then they go ahead and grab their bicep with their other arm hanging down in front of their opponent. And then they take that hand and basically comb the opponent's hair until they're on the back of the opponent's head, where they can then lock up the choke. The problem with this is that you're leaving the hand that goes behind the head out in front of your opponent, which allows him to grab onto that and then begin to affect his back control escapes. We don't want this. You might be able to get away with this with other white belts, but I'm gonna say that most blue belts and beyond, definitely purple belt and up, this is not gonna work. So as you can see here, I'm setting up the slick way, right? I set my choking hand in, I grab the shoulder, and then my other hand weaves back behind the head as my choking hand grabs my bicep. Now you have to keep in mind that this can be difficult to do, especially if you don't have great mobility in your arms, but there's a reason, right? If someone someone knows that you're going for this choke, if they lean their head back, they are exposing their neck a little bit more, but they make it really hard for you to get that other hand back behind their head if they're weaving it in rather than coming over the top. Okay, so if I am trying to set that kind of rear naked choke up, I like to take my head and push it into the back of my opponent's head. This creates a little doorway for my other arm, my outside arm, to weave in so that I can grab my bicep and get that hand behind his head without ever making it available to my opponent. And another little tip about this that I'm gonna guess you haven't seen yet is not only are you squeezing everything to finish the choke, but you're also turning towards your elbow, as you can see I'm doing here. A little bit of rotational force is the cherry on top. You probably get the choke if you squeeze this thing all together, but if you add a little outside rotation to this, it really sends it over the top. So just remember, if you're trying to set this up and you're having a hard time getting your other hand behind their head, instead of going in front of their face and combing all the way back to the back of their head, enter through the back, but you may need to use your head to create a doorway first. This has been a big game changer for me because I don't have great mobility in my arms. So try this. If you haven't tried it yet, give it a shot because I think you'll see it makes all the difference. And the last piece of advice I can give you white belts has to do with your posture. As we can see in these examples, I'm gonna show you a triangle and I'm gonna show you a scissor sweep. Same principles apply, and you're gonna see this if you pay attention all over the place in jiu-jitsu. As we watch me work through this triangle, if my opponent or training partner sits back and up, he's out of range of that triangle. But what's the landmark here that we can focus on so you can remember what I'm talking about? Watch where his butt is in comparison to where his feet are. In this position, his butt is planted on top of his feet. His weight is back, his weight is stacked up and down. Okay, not only is he sturdy here, he's out of range. If I'm able to pull him forward or he just voluntarily brings his weight forward, watch what happens. His butt leaves his feet. And in doing so, this puts him within range of me hitting my triangle very easily, in fact. Now let's look at the other example, a scissor sweep. If he's sitting with his butt on top of his feet and I'm trying to hit this scissor sweep, it's never going to happen. He's too sturdy. But the second I'm able to either force him to lean forward or he voluntarily leans forward, as some white belts do because they just don't know better, watch what happens. His butt leaves his feet. Now his weight is no longer stacked vertically, it's spread out horizontally, which makes the scissor sweep very easy to hit. At the end of the day, this all comes back to posture. If you can posture up and back, you keep yourself nice and safe. If you're driving forward without a plan, you don't have a reason for driving forward, you're probably gonna end up getting swept, submitted, your back taken, something along those lines that isn't really ideal for you. So if you're brand new, you're a white belt, you've been training for a couple months and you're noticing that you're just getting stomped in everyone else's guard, maybe pay attention to what your posture is doing. Pay attention to how forward you're letting your weight go. Pay attention to how far you're letting your butt come off your feet. So those are some things for you new guys to think about. You start to piece this stuff together and it starts to make sense. And then jiu-jitsu really becomes fun because you start to win. That's where it really becomes a good time. So you white belts, hang in there. Your job, your journey is to lose. You get better from every loss, right? Your goal should be, if you got tapped 10 times today, get tapped 9 times tomorrow. With that, if you guys have any questions or comments, drop them down below. And if you upper belts who are watching this see some other tips that you can give the white belts, drop them in the comments because we're all here to help each other learn. So with that, you know how we like to end them, sometimes backwards, always forwards. I'll see you in the next one.